Dr. Hillari Hamilton, welcome to the Rich Equation podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so honored that you're here. I'm really, really excited. I want to first introduce you as one of the principals of the Inner Science Foundation for Dr. Joe Dispenza. And, we had the pleasure of meeting at one of the events, I think, and then you invited me to a research review in San Diego a few weeks ago, and I got to learn a lot more about the organization and the science. And so I'm just really excited to unpack the science of meditation with you, which is really the work that you guys focus on. And I talk about a meditation on the podcast all the time as a tool, as a medium, as a healing mechanism. But Dr. Joe Dispenza takes it to a whole nother level and really trying to incorporate science with this medium to make it more mainstream, I'll say. And I'll let you say that in all your own words, but I'm just really honored that you're here and excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And like you said, Dr. Joe's meditation, he's the outlier of meditation, because what he does, like we said at the event when we had the research presentation, we've got to come up with another word other than meditation, because what we do is we really go within and we become familiar with who we are, but we expand our awareness in such a way that it's not really meditation. We're using our body as an instrument of consciousness, and it's pretty cool what happens. And so with normal meditation like calm, the word meditation means to go within, right? To become familiar with. And so when you do that with normal meditation, you just go in and you just observe your thoughts as if they're, moving in front of you like a train would. But with Dr. Joe's meditation, we actually leave the three-dimensional state of reality and go into the 5D. And that's where we create from, and that's where we were from originally. And so when we move away from this dimension and go into that fifth dimension, we can become greater than our body, greater than our environment, and greater than time. And when we do that, we change our energy. And when we change our energy, we change our personality, which affects our personal reality, which is our life. So it's a whole nother ball of wax, what we do. And it's I'm glad you got to come to Niagara Falls.
It is. And, I think there's a lot of different mediums for meditation. But one of the things I love about what Dr. Joe is doing is he's really trying to connect science and get data and get information that supports the meditation and supports the process of meditation. And he's iterating as he's going and changing things as he's learning more, and he's doing it in a very open, transparent way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He's really dissecting what's happening with the mind-body connection and then putting it back together. And he's including ancient wisdom as well, and science to look deep down into what's happening on a cellular level. And, we're made up of 70 trillion cells. And those 70 trillion cells are spying on what we're thinking. And everybody deserves to know that what we think shows up in our body as a feeling, and those feelings create who we are. And that can either move us closer to sickness and disease, or it can move us closer to health and wellness. But we have to know that we're the designers of our lives. And the more we know that, the more responsibility we have for ourselves. And then that expands into our families, it expands into our workplace, it expands into our neighborhoods. And I think he has the potential to really affect not just people healing their bodies, but helping institutions become better too. So we're on a big path together. Yes. And you're a part of it with us.
Yeah, I mean, I did one of the events, and I'll admit I did one of the events, and we did about 40 hours of meditation in 6 days, and I was not mentally prepared to go into doing that, and it was one of the most life-changing experiences. And I am a meditator, an avid meditator, but to do 40 hours in 6 days was definitely out of the norm for me, and I experienced things physiologically that I didn't know were possible, and which is what all the research of Dr. Joe is really talking about. Tell us a little bit about the research. Tell us about the process of the research, because you have a very unique architecture in terms of the organization and how you're able to collect the information and do the research. And let's get nerdy into the science here.
Okay, that sounds great. So We started, well, Inner Science, which is our foundation, it's Inner Science Research Fund, started in January. And at the same time, we launched a big study. It was the biggest study known to man for meditation this last January. And we launched it in Marco Island, where we studied 850, actually it was a little bit bigger than that in January, participants. And we looked at them at the beginning of the event, and then we examined them at the end of the event. And in January, we looked at their microbiome. So we did stool samples. We looked at a cheek scrape. So we looked at some DNA and RNA. And then we also did a Garmin study. So we could look at the heart rate variability, oxygen levels, brainwave activity a little bit. We did like 30 people study of EEG. And then we did post measurements. And so of that big study there, we pulled out 30 different diseases. So that was pretty cool to look. I think it was 30 different diseases.
And within a 7-day period of time, measuring the biological changes of those markers of all those 30 diseases.
Yes. And so it was a big group of people, but of that we teased out, I think it was 30 people, 30 individuals with, I think, 30 different diseases. So you had to be 30 people to make a good group of a disease to study what changed in their microbiome and in their saliva in 30 days. I'm sorry, 7 days.
And so like, what were the top diseases that you were studying or that people felt like they had or they were coming with?
A lot of cancer. A lot of cancer.
Sorry, a lot of cancer.
Cancers. Yeah. A lot of different cancers were there. I don't know the specifics as of yet because the study hasn't been fully released, but I know that that's the different diseases, the amount of different diseases that we looked at.
And I know this answer, but tell the listeners about what showed up in the blood, what showed up in 7 days of that much meditation.
Well, are you talking about what
in terms of like the result? In terms of the result,
there's a shift in the protein production. There's a shift in the metabolites that came through. The RNA shifted a little bit. The DNA shifted. So there was a lot of transformation that happened in the blood, and the microbiome also changed pretty significantly, which blew Dr. Hemmel and Dr. Joe away. I mean, in 7 days. Usually with a drug study, you look at the effects of a drug within 60 to 90 days to get some transformation. But we had biological changes in 7 days.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. It's really mind-blowing stuff.
It is. And then also brainwave activity. In some of our studies, 100% of the people that we tested within a week's time, 100% had a more coherent brain at the end of a week-long event. 100%. So that's pretty significant.
It is pretty significant.
Looked at a lot of studies with surveys where people decreased their pain, decreased anxiety, decreased depression. So we're hitting all the marks on creating healthier individuals within a week's time. So it's pretty amazing.
You know, and for me personally, meditation has been so transformational. I have never really meditated with the amount of volume we're talking about that Dr. Joe's really doing. And it's like, it's opened up a whole nother path for me, but 20 minutes of meditation, 15 minutes of meditation, I was doing that consistently and found that my overall well-being improved, right? Stress management, my coherence in my thoughts, just general well-being, right? My stillness, the control of my body, things like that. And I'm a huge advocate of meditation, but like everything, there are levels. A lot of people who have never been meditating struggle with 5 or 10 minutes of meditation, which is why all these apps exist to like calm and right to get people to sit for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And then you go to the 30-minute and 60-minute, and then there's like week-long events where people are meditating for 40, 50 hours. And there's, 90-day meditations that people are going on. So it just, it just goes deeper and deeper. And to spend that much time in your own thoughts or with yourself that intimately, what I love about, again, Dr. Joe, is what you're doing is you're trying to find the science and why it's working and what the benefits are, so that people are more motivated to do more of it, right? And I mean, I know it works, and I know you know it works, but to prove it with science gets people mobilized, and I think it's a movement that is not going to stop. So it's really powerful.
Absolutely. And it's a time in history to know this information, because we think 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. And of those 60 to 70,000 thoughts that we think in a day, 90% of them we thought the day before and the day before that. So in order to change, we have to become familiar with those thoughts that we're thinking. And 95% of those thoughts are unconscious.
Yes.
So to change, we're only aware of that 5%. So it's virtually impossible to change. But like you're saying, when you're sitting in a Dr. Joe Dispenza week-long event, you're giving multiple opportunities to come up against yourself, be familiar with those thoughts and feelings, and then navigate that energy beyond those thoughts and feelings. And then that changes your energy. And we're made up of 99.999% energy. And if we change the energy, then we change our lives. And so most of us live in survival. 75% of our thoughts are survival thoughts. It's a lot of thoughts that are in survival. I don't know how, I guess that served us, 2,000 years ago. But now we're evolving. We don't need to be in a survival situation anymore. So what he teaches us in this meditation is to go from a narrow focus, which is focusing our body, our environment, and time, which is survival, right? Got to take care of my body. How much time do I have? And where do I need to go in my environment? So going from a narrow focus to an open focus. When you open your focus, you're becoming greater than your body, greater than your environment, and greater than time. And that open focus takes that energy from a contracted state of reality to an expanded state. So you're literally using your body as that instrument. And boy, it gets really fun. We don't take life so seriously once we begin to use our body, which is our greatest toy, and using that energy for something greater than that survival mechanism.
And what is exactly happening when you say broaden your perspective or broaden your view? What do you mean by that?
Okay, so we put a lot of our attention on our past, or we put a lot of our attention on the imagined future, right? You wake up in the morning and you think the same thoughts, which creates the same feelings, which drives more of the same thoughts. And then we get into this pattern, this loop, this habitual thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking. So when you take all that energy out of your past or that imagined future, then you bring all that energy into the present moment. That's the energy that you use to create with. You're not leaking it out in different ways. And that's what meditation is all about, is learning how to be present and stay in that present moment as long as you can. So you take that focus from a narrow focus and then you open that up. So that's taking your attention off of people, places, things, and your 3D state of reality. And then you go beyond that three-dimensional state of reality and you use that energy and you broaden your focus. So that's the energy that you are. So you're using your 99% energy and you're conditioning your mind to a new way of being. So it's fun. We're made up of energy. If you popped one of the cells out of your body, you have 70 trillion cells or more. You pop one of those cells out of your body and you look at it under a microscope, there's not a lot of physical matter. It's energy. It's space. So if you put more of your attention on that energy or that space, that's the difference between being in the 5D and being in the 3D. You look at that space and expand it out. And that's what his work is.
And I want to also go deeper on this for the listener specifically is, we talk a lot about coherence, energy coherence, brain coherence, energy center coherence. Explain what is coherence and why is coherence so important?
Okay, so let's go with incoherence first. So if you were to tune in on a radio dial and you tune into 101.7 and it's a love station, right? And then you're listening to this and you're feeling all this great energy and this great vibe going. And then you skip down and you go to like 10 or 96.3, and it's static. That's static. It's not really a station. It's an in-between station. That is more of incoherence, right? That's doesn't feel good. It feels incoherent. And so survival emotions are more incoherent, which contract the body. Like fear. Where do you feel fear in your body? Is those lower three centers, right? You contract in fear. Or guilt. Guilt has a really, doesn't feel good. So you're using that energy, and energy is frequency. It's just like on listening to a radio. So you want to tune up your energy to have more balance and more coherence. So elevated emotions, which will show up in your heart center or above. So elevated emotions like love, joy, compassion, appreciation, those are emotions that expand from your body, right? When you're in a state of love or compassion or joy, you're in a state of selflessness. You're putting your beyond you. So what are you doing with your energy? You're expanding your energy out, right? And that's coherence. Incoherence or survival is when you're focusing all on you. Anger, it's you, right? Fear, it's you. Frustration, that's all you, right? You might be triggered by your environment, but you're experiencing those survival emotions. So it's taking the energy that you are and transmuting those survival emotions into something greater, which is an elevated emotion. That is, like Dr. Hemmel just did a talk with Dr. Joe not too long ago, the evolution of the species. It's getting out of our survival centers and moving that energy up into our creative centers.
So in my simple understanding, the healing is coming from the cell itself in getting from a lower vibrational state to a higher vibrational state, which ends up being a more healing cell.
Yeah. And we're all connected. If you look at quantum physics, there is no separation in the quantum. We're all connected. There is no you, there is no me. There's just perceptions of separation, but there is no separation. So like when we do a coherence healing and you have 6 people surrounding an individual in front of us that might have cancer, we learn all week how to get out of our own way and become greater than our body, greater than our environment, and greater than time. And using that energy in the present, not leaking it out in the past or expanding it out into the future. You're utilizing your energy, that 99% energy, and the people that are around you. When you expand your energy out, it creates an amplitude of energy, right? When you bump up against other people's energy, it amplifies. And then when you have a target, which is the person laying in front of you, you're bringing that energy through you and expanding from you through your heart center, and you're affecting their field. And their field creates matter. So we've got it all wrong in science so far, and in medicine. I don't want to say all of that right now, but we do have it wrong. It's the energy that creates the matter. It's not matter that creates the energy. So we change the pattern in the field that has the disease, we affect the matter. The matter changes. I mean, that's like, you were in Niagara Falls. There was a woman that had breast cancer, and she had a lump in her breast, and after the healing, that lump went away, like instantaneous. And there was another woman that had a thyroid tumor. That tumor went away. There was a couple of people that walked to the stage and handed Dr. Joe their canes. Do you remember how the energy?
I do remember. It's hard to explain on a podcast, or it's hard to just hear it. I'm sure the listeners are like, this is now getting woo-woo. Because if you're not there and you don't feel it and you don't see it with your own eyes, it's really quite, it's hard to believe. And I think that's why I wanted to go a little deeper in understanding what coherence is and the energy cells going from a low vibration, because that makes sense. You don't need to even see the science or see the healing to understand that if you believe that everything is energy,
yes,
and that there is high energy and low energy, then if something that is poisonous to the body or your environment, it must be low energy. And if to heal or to get better, we have to move that low energy to high energy. Well, then the outcome is going to be healing. That, like, logically speaking, that makes sense to me. And hopefully it kind of makes sense to the listener. And the outcome is literally people who haven't walked for 20 years getting up in this, like walking 100 feet and giving canes and wheelchairs and walking away without tumors. It's just really quite remarkable. And what's fun is, even if you don't believe us, Hillari and the team and Dr. Hemel are publishing information, data, real scientific, university-backed data to prove this stuff. So it's really quite fascinating.
And it's hard for me to believe too. I mean, I stand there in front of a man that we were just in San Diego, lovely man. He was in a snowboarding accident. He was sitting in his wheelchair for 14 years, paralyzed from the waist down, legs both atrophied. He's walking in front of me. Like, he's pushing his wheelchair in front of me. He's picking up his leg and walking. And I said, Hillari, take this in. Like, take it all the way in. There's a man that was paralyzed that's walking. I mean, it doesn't fit into this reality. Really. Miracles just don't. And what I love about what's happening with Dr. Joe, it's what he says is like, it's the 4-minute mile. Once so many people are doing it, it's becoming more acceptable, more normal, more
because you believe.
It's you believe. Believe is everything, right? Belief is everything.
Well, we're talking about physical healing, but like, even, and we mentioned this a little earlier, is, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of leaders deal with stress, anxiety, pressure, tension, fatigue. Maybe there's not a physical ailment of that, but there is a energetic, negative energy that's associated with those feelings or those tensions. And those are some people's realities, that they're highly stressed. They deal with anxiety or fear or depression. And talk a little bit about why meditation is so helpful in this. I mean, I experienced it for myself, but just talk to us a little bit about why meditation is so important.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. It happens to a lot of people, successful people. And we think, successful people, they make a lot of money, they can't have any problems. But I've dealt with a lot of CEOs and helped them, coach them with this type of work, because they get into how they think and feel, and it drives them to be super successful, but that doesn't always lead to happiness. Right. A lot of them take Adderall and do all kinds of other substances to move and work hard and, do too much. So I've dealt with them, one-on-one. So it's all based in how we think, act, and feel. So how we think, how we act, and how we feel creates our state of being, which is our personal reality, which is our personality. And so we don't even know that we're in that state of being. It's just us, right? I mean, we don't know that we're depressed or we're anxious. It's just how we've always been. That's how we've become successful, is moving quickly and analyzing everything and getting things done. But if you sit back and use meditation and start observing who you're being, that's called metacognition, actually seeing that those thoughts and those feelings that you're having is not loving to you, right? It's actually breaking you down. You can use meditation like Dr. Joe's meditation and sit with yourself and then slow those thoughts down, change the energy, open up your heart, because that's where we have trust, or we don't. Or the third center, where we control, manipulate, and will through. A lot of third center people are very successful, but we're closed down in those areas. So to go in and become familiar with who you're being and settle your energy down, it's a skill, right? Meditation is a skill, and every person, no matter how old you are, what background you're from, you can learn this skill. And it's just making time for it, and everyone's worthy of knowing how to do it. That's why Dr. Joe has a huge following across the board of all different countries and races, religions, ages, all of it, because it's a skill that every human was born with, if you can learn how to use it.
I want to ask you, let's get into the workplace, and then I'd love to get into the household. But you guys do a lot of work with companies. And I think that, and I was literally thinking about this the last couple of days about there are low vibration thoughts that there is no space for emotion in business, or love or meditation. And you guys are actually defying that. You're bringing meditation into organizations. You're helping people break these barriers of thought. Tell us what's going on. Why does it work? What's happening? What are the results? And if a company is interested in it, like, what are either the qualifications or what seems to support that type of work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, Dr. Joe has a side company called Neuro Change Solutions, and it's where we do go in and we help companies go from an incoherent state where no one's really supporting one another. It's very independent. No one's working together as a team. And it just has fallen apart and broken into pieces where they're living in survival. And if you take that team and bring them together and go through a whole survey and questions and really analyzing, where's my thoughts? Where's my feelings? Am I really a team player? Am I able to overcome these thoughts and feelings that are not really serving this company and change that? It changes a whole culture within a company. And to start, we do a 30 days to genius journal with the company too. And so it's starting over. It's pushing the reset button. It's having amnesia to all of the past thoughts and feelings, because we're all the same. We're able to notice we all want the same thing. We all want to be accepted. We all want to belong. And we all want to matter, right? If we just realize that we're all the same on the inside, then we can start over and begin anew. And so it's a 2-day workshop that you can do with a company, and it really transforms everybody. Everybody breaks down and sees one another for who they truly are. And then you can build each other up and support each other in a whole new way. So you change the personality also of the company. And that changes big time results. You get more in a creative state of brain or mind. So your mind can be in different states, right? So high beta is when you're in stress. So you're not utilizing your brain correctly. So it's when it's incoherent in high beta, it's not a time to learn. It's not a time to create. It's not a time to connect. You're in high beta, you're in survival. But if you learn to bring those brain waves down from high beta to beta, like we're in beta right now, we're communicating, we're listening, we're talking, and then bring it down to alpha. Alpha is a very creative state. So you can learn to change brain waves through meditation. I know in my company, when I used to have multidisciplinary health clinics for chronic pain, what we would do with our team of doctors is we would start in the morning, because these were people that were under the poverty level, that were a lot of stress, a lot of physical, chemical, emotional stress, our patients on many medications. And what we wanted to do is pull them off a lot of their medications and give them alternative ways of healing. But as doctors, we would start our morning in a group and we would do a 5-minute meditation. And every single one of them always would say, oh, thank God we start our day this way, because it changes everything, and it connects the doctors as a team so we can go out and serve our patients better. So every company should start that way, just a few 5 minutes of connecting.
It's really something that people need to hear and adopt. I think there's a common misconception that their meditation doesn't have a place in the workplace. And I mean, we use meditation all the time, and we do it in leadership meetings or retreats or things like that. And it's incredible how quickly it shifts patterns of thinking. And you articulated that really nicely, but it's so amazing. And I think people underestimate that. People may not know what to do with it in the beginning if they're not used to meditating. But like you said, if you bring it in as a leader, people adopt it really quick, and then I find it to be really refreshing. Talk to us about how you see the community bringing it into the home. How does it change dynamics of relationships at home? Because sometimes you may be really into this and maybe your spouse isn't, or maybe you're trying to bring it into your teenage kids or things like that. Like how can we use this work at home?
Well, there's a great story that just happened recently at the Orlando event. I was honored to interview 14 moms that brought their kids to the event because the kids were autistic. Most of them were autistic. And this is a good point that you bring up. So some of the moms have done Dr. Joe's work and some of them have not. So a few of the moms that do Dr. Joe's work told me that once they started meditating, they could see that their children, most of them are nonverbal and, serious special needs children, they could tell that their children were actually changing because of the way they were changing. When they were taking themselves out of survival, I can't even imagine having a special needs child. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a full-time job. You're taking care of this child and you put yourself on the back burner. But these women were taking care of themselves by self-regulating their emotions. And so, like we were saying, when you're in a state of love or compassion or joy or presence, that resonance of energy is bumping up against the energy of your child, right? So thoughts go out and feelings come in. Thoughts are electric and feelings are magnetic. So you're an electromagnetic field around your body. And when you're with your family, you're expanding that energy out into your household, right? So you don't have to say anything to your spouse if you were just at an event. Just be the example of the new way of being. And a lot of the times when you come back from an event, your family, you're on this beautiful high, you want to dance around the house just because you tapped into something so beautiful. When you have 1,800 people in the state of love together, there's nothing else that exists. There's a connection that happens that everyone on the planet should know about, right? I mean, we should all know that love is the greatest healer. And so if you can do that for your family, it resonates. It resonates throughout your whole household.
I love that. Tell us about how we can learn more about the foundation and how we donate. I'll put some links in the show notes, but tell us a little bit about where we can learn more and go deeper.
Okay. So we started in January, and it's Inner Science Research Fund. And the reason why we started this is back in 2019, Dr. Toby and I worked together, and he went to an event. And he's an MD. We had multidisciplinary clinics, and I was teaching Dr. Joe's work. And our patients under the poverty level were responding so well to the meditation. It literally became the foundation to their health. We had, multiple different modalities to help patients, but the meditation was what was impacting them the most. And it took me a long time to beg him to go to an event. He finally went to an event, and he heard several people in a testimonial saying how they overcome stage 4 cancer. And he said, we have to do research. We need to do research. Can you get me on, a meeting with Dr. Joe? And I was able to do that. And within 3 months, he wanted to continue to do this research thing, but there was no money. And he's like, well, Hillari, he's a big time doctor with all these clinics. He goes, well, Hillari, there's no money. And I'm like, let me find the money. I'll find the money. Let me find the money. And there just wasn't any money at the time. And in Niagara Falls, it was another event in 2019. A woman sitting next to me was asking, Joe was talking about doing this research. And she leaned over to me and she goes, how are you guys funding this research? And I said, well, I'm going to start doing some grants and applying and figuring it out. She goes, oh, so you know about the research? And I go, yeah, I'm going to help put it together. And she goes, how much money do you need? And I just said $100,000. I didn't know what to say. So I just said $100,000. And she said, you've got it. And I literally fell off the back of my chair.
She wrote you a check.
She wrote me a check for $100,000. And I literally cried. I feel like crying right now because it really launched our ability to do this research. So I put a meeting together with Hemel and Toby at UCSD and this lovely woman who likes to stay anonymous. And it started. We did our first project, our first research study in 2020 in Indian Wells, and it was a 30-person study. And so people have these amazing transformations with this work. and all they want to do is give back. They want this to be out into the world so people can, there's too many people that are sick. There's too many people that are struggling. There's too many people that don't know that they can self-regulate by how they think and feel. I mean, all it comes down to is being able to self-regulate your emotions, right? Mm-hmm. So we need to prove this through science. And so we started with Inner Science in January of this year. And it's our community and people that have been transformed with the work that want to see this in healthcare. And that's where we're going. We want to bring it forward. So it's a beautiful connection because the people that do this work, they just know what they know.
Yeah.
They know it's
and it really does make you a more productive, coherent, effective person. I mean, whether you're a better mom or a better leader or a better teammate or a better brother, like it just improves every part of you, physically, emotionally, psychologically. And to do that much intense meditation for that short amount of time, it really does get you out of your survival life. Like you're paying the bills or whatever tensions or stresses people are going through. I highly recommend, if you can even get in nowadays, because there's such high demand, but to learn how to spend that much time by yourself, it's so powerful. Can
you imagine living your life and not going within and knowing the person that you really are, just really reflecting, just bouncing off your environment constantly and never knowing your true self? And that's what this is all about, is knowing you. If you go through your whole life and you miss knowing yourself, you miss the whole purpose of
and you keep learning. You like, even though you think you know yourself, like every time I do one of these things, or every meditation, you just learn something different about yourself that you never thought was possible. And that's it actually becomes a game, right? And I think that's something people may not understand, but the more you get into it, it becomes a game. It becomes fun. That's the part of the creation of, I'm learning more about myself every single day that you don't really you can't believe.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I already know myself.
Yeah.
No,
there's so much more to learn, right? And one of my favorite thing that Dr. Joe says is, where you put your attention is where you put your energy. So where are we putting our attention and energy all day long really matters. And how many of us look in the mirror and pick ourselves apart every morning? Not seeing the good, we see what's wrong rather than what's right. And what he teaches us is to fall in love with ourselves. I mean, gosh, what is this all for if we don't fall in love with ourselves? If we're in love with ourselves, we can love everyone else.
One of the things I want to talk about is organizational coherence, because I went to an event, and I will say that I've been to a lot of different events, different conferences, different meetings, whatever. And the orchestra in which you guys perform at that level, with about 2,000 people coming from all over the world, all different backgrounds, all different ages, all different languages, blah, blah, blah. It was the epitome of leadership and teamwork in a way that I've never seen before, in a way that, the things coming together, the organization, the process, the discipline, the care. Tell us about that. Like, the intention of detail is like I've never seen before. Tell us about how all that happens, and tell us about what you think the magic sauce is.
The magic sauce is that love is the answer. Love is always the answer. And, when someone comes up to you at an event, you know right away if they've been to an event, if it's their second event, or if they've never been, because their energy is different. They're guarded. I was just telling Dr. Joe this the other day. People are guarded. They're very protective of themselves, and they don't let themselves relax. They're guarded. And what we do, all of us that work with Dr. Joe, is we know they're going to be different at the end of the week. So we just hold space and just radiate love to all of them. That's what we do. We radiate love to everyone that comes into our awareness, because they deserve it. They just have been in the wrong state of mind for too long. So we know by the end of the week, they'll be in the right state of mind. And it's inevitable. We know it's almost like a formula. Like the first couple of days, people really struggle, not really struggle, but people come up against themselves. They want it to work. And then they start noticing how their thoughts are. And then they begin to slip right in after the first walking meditation. So it's almost like a formula that happens throughout the week. But the reason why we're so coherent as a group is we get together every morning. We start serving by 4:30 in the morning, before people even come down to the first meditation at 6 a.m. And we stay late until 8:30, 9, 10 o'clock at night sometimes. It's because we're in this selfless state of being. And I think that's an easier state to be in than a contracted survival state. That takes more work. Love is not a lot of work. It's pretty easy, and it's easy to expand that out. And the more you do it, the more you realize everybody wins in that situation. And we just know that Dr. Joe is such a great leader. I mean, and you talked to him a little bit, and that was so nice of you, of what you said to him. Really saw who he is. Yeah. And he wants everyone, if it's a room of 2,000 people, he wants everyone to get it. He doesn't, if there's like a group of 5 people not getting it, he'll work on those 5 people and make sure that they're crossing the river with the rest of us, because it's an energy, and we're all a part of that the energy in that room that we want to transform.
Yeah, I mean, I think as leaders, we have a really important responsibility.
I agree.
And he's such a great leader, and he embodies great leadership. And I've learned already so much from just watching him and observing him. But we have so much influence. We have people watching us, and whether you're a leader of your company or you're a leader of your family, if you can stay at that vibration, people will come and attract, and you can pull, and you have better influence, better quality influence. And I think people often think about using influence for control, rather than for positive energy. So anyways, I go off on a tangent, but just really,
no, you're right.
Beautiful stuff.
It seems like that's what's been happening for too long, that it's been control and separation and power. And, it's when everybody leads where the power is. Yes. So when we're all leading together, and that no one's left behind, and that it's everybody wants the same thing. If we could so Dr. Joe used to teach this a while ago. It's one of my favorite teachings, is that he has something called the gap. Okay. So the gap is the person that we are on the inside is this lower hand, and the person we present to the world is this upper hand. Our job is to shorten the gap, be the person to the world that we are on the inside. But a lot of us have this huge gap. We present ourselves one way to the world, but we feel different on the inside. And that's not healthy. It's not a healthy state of being.
It actually takes more energy to maintain the gap.
Oh, totally.
I think people don't quite realize that. Like, I'm not willing to do the meditation or do the work, right? They call it the work. I'm not willing to do the work, but actually it takes more energy to maintain the balance, maintain the gap, than it does to bridge it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so good. What is something that you are most excited about in terms of 2023? And what are you learning in the process? You as a leader, what are you learning that's most relevant right now?
What I'm learning is we've got it all wrong, and we've had it all wrong for a while. I think what we need to do is have more balance in humanity. I think the masculine and the feminine needs more balance together. I think we're stronger working together rather than the incoherence there. Mm-hmm. I think institutions have got it all wrong. I think schools are backwards. Here we are having our children being educated by people that we don't even pay very well.
Yeah.
Educate our children. We should pay teachers the most amount of money. They're taking care of our children. They're teaching them how to be human beings. I think we should change the prison system, the military, how the military responds. We just had in Orlando 8 couples, military couples, high elite military. And at the end of the event, one of them lives here in San Diego. I saw him at the baggage claim, and he was different at the beginning of the event. He grabbed me, bear hugged me, and here he is, does what he does in the military setting. And he's like, I could do healings all day long, Hillari. He goes, that was the best part of the whole thing. So using his body as an instrument to heal someone. I mean, why are we not doing that, right? So changing the military, changing the police department, changing, all these institutions they're going about things wrong, I think. And it's more about, like you said, not control, more about loving each other, taking care of one another. There shouldn't be people on the planet that are starving with the amount of wealthy people that exist on this planet. There's, I don't know how many billionaires, but someone just told me the other day, we have more billionaires than you could imagine. Yeah. Now, if those billionaires took that money and did something, I mean, do you really need $1 billion? Can you do something that's going to actually impact this world in a better way? But I do think that's what's going to happen in 2023. I think people are waking up to let's transform.
They're waking up to waking up.
Waking up to waking up. Exactly. And I think it's time. I mean, we've reached the precipice. We're right there on the razor's edge. We better shift and turn this thing around, or we're in trouble. But I do think we have the potential to do that, especially with all this research coming out. And like Nikola Tesla said, I think in the 1920s, because he was big into energy, and he utilized the Niagara Falls for energy. I mean, he's a pretty cool dude. And he said, once science starts studying the non-physical, then science will expand exponentially in a small amount of time, because we're studying the non-physical. And that's pretty much what we're doing with Joe's work.
One of the things that I think is really fascinating about science and reality is that, for example, we as a society don't believe what we cannot see.
Right.
And so, for example, the X-ray or the radio frequency, we didn't believe that those things exist until we invented instruments to be able to measure them.
That's right.
And I think what we're now have the technology and information and the people that are actually chasing this science is that we're going to be able to measure things that we never thought were possible, like the connection between two humans, the like you said, the field of energy around us, the magnets and the, I forget what word you used, but all of these things that are really affecting our beingness.
Yeah.
And our connectedness. I just read a really cool article about, I think it's called like mycelia or something like that. It's the stuff in mushrooms that connect. They're like the neural networks of mushrooms under the land.
Yes. Yeah.
And like they're just doing, I mean, for 30, 40 years, they weren't allowed to research mushrooms. And now all of a sudden there's like this amazing research and science about how mycelia, this like fibrous fungi, is basically the neural network for trees and how they connect to each other and send information and signals. And so now all of a sudden people are like, oh yeah, of course. Right. And so it's really cool to be part of something that is sort of on the cutting edge of just mind-blowing stuff in the world that's going to change people's behavior and attitude and energy. So I just honor you for the work that you guys are doing.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm blessed to be a part of this. I pinch myself all the time, like, how did I get in this seat? But it's quite the ride. I mean, we have the right people around us that support this work, that notice the transformation, that really see, they notice the benefits. And we got a great team of researchers, and Dr. Joe works tirelessly at, bringing this stuff forward. And it's a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Well, I definitely recommend people looking more into the foundation, Dr. Joe's work. It's the innerscienceresearch.org. There's links there to donate. So please reach out either to Hillari or go to the website and feel free to donate. I highly recommend this organization.
What's fun about it too, what's fun about the Inner Science Research Fund is we also do a monthly meditation with hundreds of people from all over the world, where we don't just want to get together and meditate. We also want to affect the field, because it's the field that changes the matter. So we put a lot of our attention on making a big splash in consciousness together as a collective. So it's fun to be a part of it.
Final question for you is, what does it mean to live a rich life?
Wow. to be around people that I love, to have moments where I take in nature, to really recognize that this is my life and life is big, and to live as many moments as you can, elongate the moment as much as you can, and let love lead you.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us today, sharing the journey, sharing the fund, and I honor you for all the work you're doing, and give you as much love energy as I can to keep you moving in the right direction.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it.